I think it's the ancient structure, like it's said to be greater than the pyramid, because the labyrinth has multiple levels, and it's almost like imagine yourself standing in a shopping mall.
A team of geophysicists watched their screens in disbelief. The pulses they sent deep into the bedrock beneath the Hawara pyramid, miles from Giza, came back with an impossible image. It wasn't a tomb or a cave, but a massive grid-like structure of granite walls, some as thick as a house, forming a gigantic maze. This was it, the lost Labyrinth of Egypt, a place spoken of in hushed tones by ancient historians and long considered a myth. They had found a wonder of the ancient world, but their excitement quickly turned to fear. A national security gag order was issued, and their proof was locked away. Herodotus's impossible story. You see, many people are crazy about the pyramids. They're symbols of ancient power and mystery standing against the skyline for over 4,000 years. But what if the ancient Egyptians built something that made the Great Pyramid look like a practice run? According to one of the most reliable historians of the ancient world, they did. Around 450 BC, a Greek historian named Herodotus, known as the father of history, traveled to Egypt. He saw the pyramids, and he was impressed. But then he was shown something else, a structure at a place called Hawara that absolutely staggered him. In his book Histories, he wrote, and I quote, "It is a work beyond words. The labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids." Think about that. The Great Pyramid contains an estimated 2.3 million blocks of stone with a total weight of 6 million tons. For Herodotus to say the labyrinth was a greater achievement is a statement that's hard to wrap your head around. He described a colossal building with 12 covered courtyards and 3,000 chambers, half of them above ground and half below. He walked through the upper chambers himself, describing them as an endless wonder of passages moving from rooms to galleries to more courtyards, all roofed with single massive slabs of stone and covered in intricate carvings. But the Egyptian priests refused to let him see the 1,500 underground chambers. They told him those were the tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles, a holy place not for mortal eyes. Other ancient writers backed him up. Diodorus Siculus and Pliny the Elder both wrote about this incredible maze. The scale was just mind-boggling. They described a structure so large that if you put all the temples and great works of ancient Greece together, they would be lesser in effort and expense than this one labyrinth. Then it just vanished. For 2,000 years, the story was passed down, but the building itself was gone. Was it destroyed in an earthquake, swallowed by the desert, or did it never exist at all? Many modern experts chose the easy answer. They said Herodotus must have been exaggerating. The story was just too fantastic to be true. This skepticism seemed to be proven right in the late 1800s. A famous British archaeologist, Sir Flinders Petri, went to Hawara, the site Herodotus described, to search for the lost labyrinth. After a ton of digging, all he found was a huge flat area of stone chips and a massive stone slab measuring over 300 yards long and 200 yards wide. It was enormous, the size of several football fields. But there were no walls, no passages, no carved chambers. Petri made a declaration that would be accepted as fact for the next 100 years. This was the foundation of the labyrinth. The structure itself, he claimed, had been completely demolished, its stones carried away and reused in other buildings centuries ago. The mystery, it seemed, was solved. The great wonder was gone forever. But what Petri didn't know, and what no one could have known, was that he wasn't standing on the bottom of the labyrinth. He was standing on the top. What lay just a few feet beneath his boots would shatter his conclusion. A discovery they weren't supposed to make. Fast forward to 2008. The official story for over a century was that the labyrinth was gone. Mainstream Egyptology had closed the book on it. But you see, not everyone was convinced. A team of Belgian and Egyptian researchers decided to challenge Petri's conclusion. They called their project the Mataha Expedition, Mataha being the Arabic word for labyrinth. Led by an artist and researcher named Louis de Cordier, they didn't bring shovels and brushes. They brought cutting-edge technology, the kind of stuff used to find oil reserves or hidden military bunkers. They were going to look under Petri's so-called foundation. Using advanced ground-penetrating radar and seismic tomography, they began scanning the bedrock deep beneath the Hawara site. This tech sends energy waves deep into the earth. When these waves hit something, they bounce back, creating a picture of what's hidden below, kind of like a medical ultrasound for the planet. What they found was not just a few scattered ruins, it was an earth-shattering discovery. The team watched in amazement as the data painted a clear picture on their screens. Below the water table, at a depth of about 25 to 40 feet and directly under the massive stone slab Petri had found, was a colossal structure. It wasn't a random collection of rocks. The scans revealed a gigantic grid of impossibly thick walls made of granite and other dense stones. These walls, several yards thick in some places, formed a complex network of chambers and passages, an enormous multi-level labyrinth just as the ancient writers had described. One scan section alone was nearly 500 feet across, the size of a stadium, containing huge rooms. And the evidence suggested this was just a small piece of a much larger whole, a structure potentially 3 to 5 times bigger. This discovery was breathtaking. It meant that Petri hadn't found the foundation of a destroyed building. He had found the roof of a perfectly preserved one. The labyrinth wasn't gone. It had been there all along, hiding just out of sight. The team had done the impossible. They had found a lost wonder of the world. They had proven Herodotus was right. The results were presented in a scientific journal and at a lecture at Ghent University. The team prepared for a global announcement that would change the history books. They had scientific proof, hard data from multiple scanning technologies. This was set to become the biggest archaeological discovery of the millennium. But the announcement never came. Instead of being celebrated, the Mataha expedition was silenced. The team was about to learn that finding the truth is one thing, revealing it is another. A secret too big to share. The thing nobody tells you about making a world-changing discovery in Egypt is that you don't get to be the one to announce it. All archaeological findings are controlled by the Supreme Council of Antiquities, which at the time was led by the famous and controversial figure Zahi Hawass. The Mataha team handed over their data, expecting a joint press conference and international recognition. Instead, they got silence. Then, they got a warning. According to Louis de Cordier and other members of the expedition, they were hit with a gag order. They were told that discussing their findings any further would be a breach of Egyptian national security. Think about that for a second. The discovery of an ancient labyrinth was being treated like a state secret, on par with military intelligence. Why? Why would the Egyptian government want to hide the existence of a structure that would bring in a massive wave of tourism and academic interest? The official story, or rather the lack of one, makes no sense. The results were published in a scientific journal by the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics in Cairo, but they were never shared with the international media. The discovery simply vanished from the public eye. Speculation has run wild ever since. Some believe it was a matter of ego. Perhaps the established authorities didn't want a foreign team to get credit for such a monumental find. Others suggest it's about control. The Egyptian government wants to manage the narrative of its own history and release information on its own terms, no matter how long that takes. But then there are the darker, more conspiratorial theories. What if there's something inside the labyrinth, something they don't want the world to see? Remember, Herodotus was told the underground chambers contained the tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles. But he also mentioned that they held the records and history of all the kings of Egypt, carved into the walls. If a 3,000-room library detailing the complete, unedited history of ancient Egypt exists, it could contain information that contradicts everything we've been taught. It could rewrite not just Egyptian history, but world history. Further scans, conducted quietly by another group using advanced defense technology, hinted at something even stranger. A massive metallic object over 130 feet long sitting in a central atrium deep within the underground structure. The object was described as being unlike wood or stone. What is it? A machine? A vehicle? No one knows because no one is allowed to look. The Mataha expedition's findings have been locked away, a secret hidden by the very people who should be celebrating it. For over a decade, the world has been kept in the dark. But you see, in the age of technology, secrets are getting harder to keep. And the final proof came not from under the ground, but from high above it. Satellites were about to blow the cover up wide open. The Giza underworld is real. While the incredible data from the Mataha expedition was being locked away in a file cabinet, a brand new kind of archaeology was taking off, literally. You see, the thing nobody tells you is that some of the greatest discoveries today aren't being made with a shovel and a brush, but with an eye in the sky. Using powerful satellites equipped with infrared and deep-penetrating radar, scientists can now scan huge areas of land from hundreds of miles up in orbit, detecting the ghostly outlines of structures buried deep beneath the surface. It's the ultimate treasure map, and it sees things that have been hidden for thousands of years. When this revolutionary technology was finally turned towards Egypt, it didn't just confirm the existence of the labyrinth, it revealed something far more shocking. The entire Giza Plateau, the ground beneath the world's most famous monuments, is like a giant piece of Swiss cheese. It's riddled with a complex network of tunnels, chambers, shafts, and massive empty spaces that we are only just beginning to put on a map. These are not just a few scattered tombs. This is an entire underground world. For years, researchers outside the mainstream who talked about this were dismissed. But now the hard data is pouring in. This isn't science fiction anymore. We know for a fact that the Osiris Shaft exists. This is an incredible structure that plunges more than 100 feet straight down into the bedrock in 3 separate levels. At the very bottom, in a flooded chamber, sits a massive multi-ton granite sarcophagus, a box so perfectly carved it looks like it was made by a machine. For decades, access to the shaft was severely restricted. You have to ask yourself why. We've heard the stories and seen the hints of tunnels branching out from underneath the Great Sphinx, with many believing they lead to a mythical hall of records. Now the space-based scans confirm that there are indeed voids and passages under the Sphinx, and they point to so much more. This makes it clear that the labyrinth at Hawara isn't some isolated wonder. It's almost certainly a major hub connected to a vast, interconnected underground system that spans for miles. So this changes everything. The conversation can no longer be about if this underground world exists. The scans, from both the ground and from orbit, prove that it's there. The real question we need to be asking is, what is it? And why is there so much official resistance to exploring it and telling the world what's been found? Let's be honest, the official stories just don't add up. We're talking about a civilization that built the Great Pyramid, a structure so enormous and so perfectly aligned to true north that our modern technology would be pushed to its limits to replicate it. They built a monument with internal shafts that align perfectly with stars in the constellation of Orion as they appeared 10,500 years ago. Are we really supposed to believe that their greatest accomplishment, the one Herodotus said surpassed the pyramids, was just a fancy temple that got torn down for scrap? It doesn't make sense. The thing is, maybe we've been looking at this all wrong because we've been told the wrong story. We look at these structures and see tombs and temples because that's the simple answer. But what if they were something else entirely? When you find a 3,000-room labyrinth made of solid granite with walls that are several yards thick, buried deep underground, you have to wonder if it was built to last for a very specific reason. Maybe it was designed to survive a global catastrophe, to preserve the knowledge and history of a lost civilization for a future generation. So what do you think is really going on? Is this a simple case of bureaucratic red tape or a genuine cover-up of the greatest discovery in human history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to explore more mysteries that have been hidden from you, make sure to like this video and subscribe.